gets in, or are we gonna have like a
Yes,
warning
let's start
flag?
it as soon as he gets in, and then because he has limited time. Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, what's
How's it
happening?
going?
How's it
What's
going,
happening?
John?
Good.
You're on horizontal screen.
Oh, let me turn it.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course,
and
of course.
just very quickly, as I mentioned, this is Clark, Owen, and Ryan. Clark is the host today. So I think obviously you and I know one another. So I think
I don't
the
know you.
guys
You got
may.
a funny accent.
Can you
So
still
weird.
understand me? Okay.
I'm just playing. Of course I
It's
can.
it has been a while. So for the rest of the guys, do you guys want to introduce yourself to John?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Clark, otherwise known as Schrodinger's baby seal, which is a hilarious quantum physics joke. You'll just have to take my word for it. And this is we're hosting a discussion about mythology and Final Fantasy VII today, and I'm really pleased to have everybody here. Just a little bit of background on me. I have a Twitch channel and a YouTube channel. I'm working on a series of videos called The Trees of Life and Death about mythology and in various sources. And so how about we go to my left, which is Ryan.
Okay, well, I'm Ryan, also known as the Night Sky Prince on YouTube. I make a crap ton of like Final Fantasy videos. And this is actually my full time, just talking about Final Fantasy and how much I love this series and what it's meant to me. And been doing that since 2019 now, going on 2 years. And it's been a great life, honestly, just being able to do this and talk about a game series that I feel so passionately about and interact with so many other people who feel all the same way, and getting to connect with people like that on a daily basis has really been the greatest part of being able to do this. And so, yeah.
Okay, Owen.
I didn't know that it was 2 years, Ryan.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I didn't even realize it either until like I was thinking the other day. I was talking to my girlfriend. I was like, man, how long have I been doing this like full time? And then like we were like, oh yeah, that was like February 2019. And, yeah.
That's crazy. You've come a long way. I didn't realize that it was such a short period of time.
Yeah.
I'll get my introduction out of the way. So I go by Sleepezi. I'm also Owen. I also have a YouTube channel. I've studied a lot of Final Fantasy VII lore / compilation, and I have a series of videos, 5-part series about the lore and where Remake is going and all this other stuff. So, and I'm new to the game, so I'm just super excited to be here. And having just recently started on Twitch playing through Final Fantasy VII, which is super mind-blowing because as I was playing the original, I was thinking to myself, man, like the context of Barret in Remake and how they did this is absolutely like the coolest thing in the world.
Absolutely.
Like it's the writing of the line where I'm just thinking to myself, like, how on earth, like for remakes, we all have that part of our brain, right? Where it's like, how are they gonna like do this, do that? Are they gonna make it better or worse? But it's just this super fine line. And I think like with your character, John, like it's like the perfect in between of like capitalizing on the old and like really like reinventing like just an amazing context for like the rest of the journey that I guess we're going into for other games. So like being able to talk to you is like mind blowing to me. So
yeah,
Cool.
and Barret is quite the character. I mean, the context of his inclusion in the original is really, it was so important. I shared this with Mo, but I grew up in a just by the way I look, I'm a quarter Nigerian, and you know how families go. I grew up in a black household, so my parents and my brother, and it it was the first RPG that my brother felt like he was represented, and I had that didn't faze me at all. I'm just this privileged kid, and I had no idea that it mattered so much to him. And in my playthroughs in high school, because that's the age I was playing it, my brother would go nuts on me if Barret wasn't allowed to, was kicked out of my party for whatever reason. He had to be in the party, and so it's really it was unprecedented at the time. And then in Remake, the growth of his character, it's just so tender. I mean, the way that he's portrayed here. I mean, there's humor. God, I love your little song. The treasure adventure songs, like highlight of the game for me. And then it's really clear from your performance that you're a father, because of how tenderly you interact with the character of Marlene. And I thought that's so positive, and just really one of the highlights of the Remake experience for me.
I think a lot of people would agree that in terms of characters, you stole the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the little moments, and particularly fatherly moments, as Owen touched on there. I've obviously spoken to you about it in the past, but as biased as I am, when it comes to you, it was very much, for me, you were the highlight. You were the character that I thought, they have absolutely nailed this. So again, as much as I've told you many times before, thank you for the performance, and it was incredible.
I appreciate it, Mo. Thank you so much, man. Thank you all. It was great meeting you all. I appreciate all the sentiment, all the words. It's just good to know that what I was trying to do in a lot of instances that you guys already mentioned was received. So that's good confirmation for me, and it lets me know I'm on the right track of continuing on with this character and having him grow and continue to develop. So thank you. And thank you for this time too, guys.
No, I'd thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Ryan, do you have a quick question?
What was that?
Ryan, do you have a quick question?
Yeah, actually. I'll start with one that I have wrote down here. Did you have any sort of process or ritual for getting into to character for Barret, or and if so, can you share with us that process that you went through to get prepared for him?
Well, his voice was important to me because I played the original a couple times, only finished it once, didn't get through it the second time. But it was important that I took what I saw with the original and adapted it to today, what's going on, as well as I've got family members, a couple in particular, that one reminds me of Barret, but I don't think he sounds like him. But the other one sounds like him, but he's nothing like him. So I took the two characters, my uncles and relatives, and heard their voices, and then had to bring to light what I thought Barret sounded like, along with the voice that I gave him back in the day. So I tried to blend everything. I had, I think at the audition, 4 different ways that I went in to do him. And we narrowed it down to one particular way, and that became the one that we used for the actual game. So that was a process for his voice. As far as his character and as far as things that all related to Barret, I wanted to make sure that he wasn't a caricature. So I really appreciate what you were saying about, your brother saying, no, man, he's got to be in your party, because as I was playing, that was my first RPG.
Right.
Ever, because I didn't like RPGs. I'm like, well, so what is this side-scrolling thing? What is this? I got to read the whole thing. But I grew up a reader, so once going back to mythology and the things that I loved, and it's so funny that we're talking about this, because I'm looking for things online now that I can watch that are adventuresome. I was scrolling through Netflix and all the different genres to try to find Red Sonja and Conan and all these different things that, I'm like, okay, well, that's part of the Norse kind of Sumerian, kind of African Kush type, so I was trying to find all this stuff because, this is the first time I've actually had time to watch TV during the break because I'm always running after my boys. But as far as finding his voice and as far as finding who he is, there's a bit of me, there's a bit of my dad, there's a bit of relatives that I have hold near and dear, and there's a bit of character development. Mo's done a great job with all of his book adaptations and all of his books to bring in the concept of each character that he covers and shows you where they came from. I'll never forget I think I had this conversation with Mo when we were doing a tour in Glasgow. So many people responded, well, I can't believe they're doing Barret like this, and I can't believe they got a different voice and a different cast and this and this and this. And they had only seen the clips. They had only seen what Square had put out Square Enix had put out to show like teasers for the game. So they saw these big moments of Barret in the elevator doing this preacher thing. They didn't see the intimate moments. They didn't see the simple conversations. Right. Of course not. We have to sell a game. So it was really interesting to hear people's opinions, especially opinions on, social media. It was interesting to hear them and not understand that I'm taking this character, and a lot of people who still commented afterwards had never played the game. So it's like I'm taking this character from beginning, middle to end. He has to have a journey for this section that we're doing. He has to have a journey or else he won't have any layers. He'll just be a caricature. And I didn't want him to be just this big, strong black brute that everybody would perceive that's not of the culture or around our culture or understanding different cultures. I didn't want him to be perceived that way. I didn't want him to be a caricature. So I tried my best to stay away from becoming some stereotypical black man that people want to see shuck and jive, or that's just not me.
I know.
It's just not me.
Yeah.
That's actually a really interesting point that you made, because that's something that I was thinking about most of the time when I was playing through. So I just got done with the Midgar section where Remake mainly covers in the original Final Fantasy VII. And I was thinking back to exactly what you said, like the promotional stuff of Final Fantasy VII Remake and what they highlighted of each character in that, and then how the characters end up kind of being portrayed in Remake. And I took note of the more serious tone of like Barret's character being highlighted more in like the promotional stuff. But it's in the moments, like throughout the story, it's almost like each beat of the story for Barret, at least, is he starts off so serious, and then once you get him into that elevator and you get him starting talking about the planet, it's like, oh, this is like exactly the side of Barret that I wanted to see, is that this passionate sort of like
passionate.
Yeah. And just seeing exactly what you highlighted, this beginning, middle, and end. And that was something I was thinking about the entire game, knowing where Barret ends off, at least somewhere in Final Fantasy, the original. Is that one thing I thought that they did a really good job of, and you did as well, is like highlighting not only the passion, but also like this little bit of anger towards, or not a little bit, that's a little bit of an understatement, that anger that he has for, all the things that have happened to him, that Shinra has caused and have been involved in. And I thought like that arc was perfectly highlighted. That sort of,
you don't get to see his backstory. In the first, you don't get to see his backstory. People don't understand where he comes from. People don't understand his relationship to Marlene. People don't know the relationship to Dane. The people don't know where he works. Mo and I talked about it, and it's like, if you understood all that, you'd understand where, the character comes from, and you'll understand who he is. But most people don't know the backstory to half the things that they read or play. They just get the information and go with it. So,
I guess
there's a lack of readers. There's a lack of researchers.
Yeah, exactly. And
in the
one
world
of
we live in.
Exactly. I think like that spitting in Destiny. You have that line in Remake about spitting in Destiny's eye, and I was just thinking to myself, this is the best way to say absolutely nothing about like the details, but perfectly highlight just the balance that you have to strike with that character, which is that he's defied a lot of odds like out of either coincidence and also just like his own, like, how
willpower.
he's his willpower, and then also like what is driving him through the entire game. And I again, it's like that balance of passion, anger, like where, like how much of this is obviously for Marlene, how much of this is for himself, and like there's constant questions. So like seeing how your character is going to go through the rest of this, however that's going to unfold, is going to be.
I think if more people took into account that here's a man who has a gun for an arm and why, then they would understand a little bit more about the character. As opposed to, hey, it's a video game, he's got a gun for an arm, cool, he's a cyborg. If you understood. But even in what I just shared with you, it's the storyline from 7. So please don't take it any further than what it is. It's the storyline from 7. I know, Wolf, you like to dig deep into stuff, and I can't reveal anything because
we know.
My contract, my NDA. But most people don't realize that if you look at what you see and what you hear in the first installment here, hopefully you'll understand, well, truly this guy has a story, as all of us do. As all the characters. I mean, my relationship with Tifa is super important.
Yes, and
my
very well
relationship
portrayed.
With Cloud, super important during the game.
Your
relationship
with Red,
is super important. But it's like any other situation. I mean, we just met, right? The three of us. So we just met. So we have now established a relationship, and either you hone a relationship, or you say you know a person, and you know what I'm saying? So relationships are established, and when you go through the thick of it, relationships and bonds get stronger. So that's how I look at it.
Well, I am personally down if you guys are all down to go on an adventure to save the planet right now. If you guys want to,
let's do it.
If you guys want to do that.
Let's go find Midgar right now.
John, I know your time is very, very valuable. So I'd like to turn it over to Mo, who maybe has a question for you, and then we're so honored to have had you as long as we've had you, really.
Oh, it's all good, man. MJ knows he got me. It's all good.
Obviously Owen touched on the spirituality of Barret's character. When you and I spent a bit of time together in Glasgow, and we chatted about your past and family and whatnot, one of the things that really intrigued me was the interest that you had when you were growing up in classical mythology, because obviously, like we mentioned, the cast itself is on that theme. I was wondering if you would be able to tell us a little bit about your own interest in mythology when you were a kid.
Yeah. So my mom was a school teacher and taught me how to read at like 3. And so at 5, I was reading pretty much everything. And she would always tell me, if you want to know something, look it up. Well, I loved comic books, so I got into comic books. And then I saw Thor, and I didn't really dig Thor, because I'm like, well, he has to be this and he has to be that. And my mom said, well, why does he have to be that? I'm like, because if he's a Norse god, then he has to know about Greek and Roman mythology, and because I had read all that. But my mom laughed at me because one day I came to the car, she had gotten me this book, Greek and Roman mythology. And, it has your basic stories, Athena, Hades, all these different little things, or Hera. And so I had finished it. I'm like, Mom, where's the next one? And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, where's the next book? Because I was used to comic books where you have to go every week or every month to get the next series to see what happened, which I learned to hate as a child. And when I found out about trade paperback books, when I became a young adult, I'm like, to hell with the little skinny comic books. Give me the book. So my mom laughed at me. She would laugh at me and she said, okay, baby, well, here's Greek mythology, here's Roman mythology, here's Norse mythology, here's African mythology, here's West African mythology. And I'm like, okay, this is great. But then I ran out of that. And so it wasn't until I got to college that I realized the 3 volumes that Campbell had written about all the different cultures' mythology, because I had digested all of Aesop's fables. I think by 7, I was either 7 or 8, and I was already done with the Odyssey, the Iliad. I was already done with it and wanted more. So when Clash of the Titans came up, I was pumped, I was pumped up about it, and all these different little things. So I was fascinated by mythology. I was fascinated by the adventure. Like I said, I'm a old school Conan the Barbarian dude.
Mhm.
Fascinated by things like that. And you know, that shaped the world in different cultures and in different areas in our lives because people believed in specific gods and specific goddesses, and some still do.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you look at all the different things, even biblically. If you
Yeah.
look biblically at some of the things, you know, Paul was in the cities and he saw these gods that were erected. And it said the
Right.
God of this and the God of that, and then they had one. He was like, "Well, who's this?" And there's no name. So, "Oh, that's the God of that's the unknown God." He's like, "What the heck?" So he said, "Let me tell you about God, the creator of the universe." So, you know, I was into all of that, and you know, still am. It still
Yeah.
tweaks my interest. It still makes me go, "Ooh," when there's a good adventure story, and there's a lack of them right now, honestly.
Oh man, my
I think,
ears
what do we
perked
have? The
up.
closest
Yeah.
thing is what? The Witcher right now, possibly. That
I'd say
kind of
so.
story
Yeah,
That's
I'd say
pretty
so.
true. Yeah.
right now. You know, as of
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Mm.
Huh.
It's been a while
I'm
since
sorry,
I've
I
seen anything
interrupted you,
like
Ryan.
that.
What were you about to say, Ryan?
Oh no,
No,
I was
yeah, I would
just
say,
so
yeah.
I was so excited to hear you say Joseph Campbell. Like I forgotten my background. I was a educator on Campbell and a lot of mythology for several years, and it is very hard to get people interested in that, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so anybody that's willing to, without the aid of like a video game, gets a ton of points in my book. So
Yeah, I'm a reader, but I think that all those books, honestly, especially with your extended knowledge of them, you could be an advisor or you could be a producer to help create something that's actually legit. Now, you know, you think about God of War.
mhm.
That's basically mythology in different stages.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
and it took the world by storm. And it's like, man, those stories have already been told.
Yeah,
But
they just stole those stories.
right, so it's kind of like if you do something, you know, not like God of War, but just tell the story. And think of how many games you could have. Think of how many shows you could have. Think of how many series you could have. Think of
Oh
how many
yeah.
movies you could have if you told them in each culture, because each culture has a different god.
Yeah.
Neil Gaiman, I'm a huge fan of
Me
Neil Gaiman.
too. Oh my
And
god.
I actually got to meet
Absolutely.
him when I was in college. And I
Oh,
just saw, what is the show that's on TV?
American Gods.
American Gods. And where he's covering different things. And honestly, the book does way more justice to what they could cover in the show.
Yes. Yes.
But
The book
even
is
what he's doing
phenomenal.
with,
Yeah.
oh yeah, what he's doing with honest, who's the spider god? I can't think straight.
Oh, and Anansi.
The African and Anansi.
Yeah.
You know, even what he did with him in that one episode, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. You're having him tell the stories, and then you're flashing back, as opposed to how the book did it. And then, so, you know, you look at stuff like that and it's like, man, we need to bring more stuff like this to light because it's ancient, ages old, and it's always going to either resurface a fascination about it, or it's going to make people go, yeah, I forgot about those stories, because those are stories that are within every culture.
Like you said, it shaped our world. Absolutely.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, and it did, yeah. So I get excited about it. So if I went on a tangent, I apologize.
Good.
No, not at all. It's one of the things that I've always found through comparative mythology is that you do see similarities across the regions, and I think a lot of it is just that the gods themselves or the stories sort of touch on like our primal fears or our instincts. And I think a lot of those fears as humans or instincts as humans, although we've obviously developed as a civilization, they're still in there somewhere, which is why I think the myths touches in a way that other stories can't, because the other stories are designed for entertainment, whereas the Norse stories or mythology in general was designed to touch effectively your soul and those primal fears. So, and I think when you mentioned Anansi in the American Gods book and the American Gods show, introducing the very real aspect of Anansi being brought to the States on the slave ships.
Yes.
And just being, you know, actually hammering home that point of, you know, this isn't just a joke. This isn't just a story. This is what these people went through.
Right.
And I think when you introduce the realism side of things, it really begins to hammer home the importance of these stories and the importance of these characters.
Yeah, Mo, I mean, I think every one of us in some way can relate to the characters within each one of these stories. Fables, if you want to call them fables. That's another book. If you guys haven't read Fables, one of the best books I've ever seen. And it basically takes Aesop's fables and brings them into those who are human in Aesop's fables and brings them into the real world. And those who are animals within Aesop's fables, and they live on the farm. But they all talk. I mean, if you guys haven't seen that graphic novel, there's some stuff out there that's absolutely incredible. But you know, I was also thinking about Beowulf, the story of Beowulf. Within that story, within the small amount of characters that are portrayed in that story, we relate to somebody in that. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of sex, regardless of gender, regardless of position. You know, either you relate with Beowulf, or you relate with Grendel, or you relate with the mama, or you relate with the folks who are all part of, we got to go in and kill the monster, or, you know, I'm the king and I'm really worried because you relate, or one of the soldiers who goes in and tries to take him out. You relate with something within those classic mythical stories. And that's what I think draws us in. And then you go, what else is there? Is there more? Is there more? And so that's, I mean, you think about the horror films that are out now. Many of the horror films, aside from the slasher, teenage, bloody one, many of the horror films were all derived from a myth or some legend that became this creature that could kill you. I mean, those are the ones that did well. Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger. You know, these were all storylines that made us go, ooh, now those are all made up. But man, what if we took the genre of horror and used mythology, or used these the ancient stories that we love as mythology, or Greek and Roman, or whatever culture it is, and what if we made a movie based on that, as opposed to make it some killer thing? You know, let's do a story on the history of the Navajo mythology and what happens. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So just so many stories, and you'll bring back cultures. Actually, you'll bring back cultures. You'll bring back a lot of unity, because I think our world needs it right now, especially over here in the States. You'll bring back a common ground for people to go, I relate to that. Why? Because like you were just saying earlier, Rod, the quarter Nigerian in me says, you know, this is my storyline, or this, I'm part of that. You know what I mean? So those are things that excite me, things that can bring people together, especially right now, man. We need it. We need peace and we need unity right now more than anything.
Absolutely. Well said.
I'm sorry, I'll keep ranting. Did I answer your question, Mo?
Please,
we want you for as long as you're willing to be.
Got me. You got me.
Speaking of Ryan, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I got one more question for you. What aspects and quality of Barret do you most identify with on the personal level?
The jokester in him, the silly side, and the parenting side. I've got 4 boys. Mo got to meet one of my sons. I don't know if he's here or not, Mo. I know he has to work, but Mo got to meet one of my sons, and all of my boys are very dear to me. So the parenting side really relates. That part of Barret really relates to me. As well as the humorous side. I like to smile. I like to try to laugh. I like to fight for joy. So those two things are the aspects that I think come a little easier when I do the character.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting, because of what you were just talking about with that sort of like human note, is that like the relationship between Barret and Marlene definitely kind of bridges that sort of like, it touches on that human note to a degree. And it's also a side that we just aren't really familiar with until we see like the light in like Barret's eyes go off as soon as he enters the bar, sees Marlene, and then just the whole like, and like speaking of Final Fantasy VII, like this whole spiritual aspect of that, but then bringing it into like these more personal relationships like the one that
Mhm.
Barret has with Marlene, where it's like, okay, like no matter what has happened in Barrett's life, like it really feels like, even though there might be other aspects of like, you know, the other emotional spectrum that he's experienced in his life, it really does feel like at the end of the day that he's kind of doing all of this for her, no matter like what he's, you know, what he's up to. So
Yeah, he's an
He
icon
definitely roots her. I mean, she definitely roots him.
yeah.
And he speaks to her completely different than he speaks to anyone else.
and
Yeah.
he's straight too. He's pretty straight when it comes to that too, which is pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
I think going back to what Clark touched on right at the beginning of the cast about singing the treasure song, that was you know, like having spent time with you, like, I can't hear Barret sing that anytime I hear that, that's John Bentley.
That's because we spent some good time together. I'm laughing that Clark brought that out. It's very funny that you picked up on that, and that's something that you liked. It seems like a lot of people like a lot of the ad-lib lines, or the times when they said in the studio, okay, John, just have at it. Do what you think Barret would do, or just what would you do? You know, and so
Well,
it's very funny, Clark, that you said that.
and it was set up as a reward because you don't get to hear that little bit of dialogue unless you go like find the secret treasure. So it was like a better reward than the dumb material you get at the end, like getting to hear that song. I could hear that over and
That's
over.
funny.
And
That and the
over.
stairs, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the stairs.
When you have
the
the
Anybody
choice to
that
take
took
the
the
stairs.
elevator is missing out.
Yeah, yeah. That's fun stuff. Those were for our impatient gamers that take the elevator. But
Fine
you know,
action.
Mo says that because I think, what, Mo, would you say the time that we spent just touring Scotland, we shared just laughter. We shared so much joy, and we shared a bit of our stories in each other.
Yeah.
But even within that, the lighthearted humor, the lightheartedness of the realism of who we are as dads, as husbands, as men, you know, we got to share, and we got to laugh, you know, and so that's why you hear you hear me because it's that's just who I am.
Yeah, it's John Bentley all over. Yeah.
That's funny. I miss Scotland, man. I loved Scotland so much when we went over to visit through Kukulkan, and thank Alex Main for doing that. He and Alan. It's like I that's the spot that I've got to try to figure out how to get there at least once a year. It's just it's a magical place. And you talk about history. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, Clark. You, especially with what you do and what you've studied. You got to have Mo take you to the museum and then take you to the wall where that was defended. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, did you tell me, Mo, they're still finding artifacts around that wall that was built?
I live in a town just outside of Glasgow, and a few miles north is the furthest north that the Roman Empire ever got in Europe. It's a place called the Antonine Wall. It's 2,000 years old. But yet you can literally go and stand by 2,000-year-old ruins, just a stone's throw away from my house. And some of the artifacts that have been found are in a museum at Glasgow University, which I took John to go and visit. So it was, you know, and I still remember your face, just big eyes looking at these, thinking that, you know, this is more than 1,000 years older than my country. Never mind.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, I mean, it made America look like a joke as far as history, because you think about how far the Roman Empire stretched, and then you think about the lands that we don't really talk about or know about that they didn't conquer.
Right.
And if you hear about why they didn't conquer, the Scots beat them down. They beat them back. And I think
we're all crazy. That's the problem.
Well, it's not just that. Mo, what's crazy is you try to go as far as you can possibly go. You can't get there. And when you retreat, you build another wall in between your point of retreat to back to where you have conquered. That's some serious crazy, if you want to call it. But, you know, the history behind that is just, it's huge to me. And you know, I like history, but I love hearing cultural things that actually took place. So much news is fake news.
Right.
Some cultural things that actually took place, and you got the evidence right there sitting. You got pieces of the wall right in front of you. You know what I mean? So
Come visit my house, John. I'll take you.
oh yeah, I will.
Yeah.
We remember we couldn't because we didn't have time. And they got the coolest drinks. I can't remember the name of that doggone drink I had.
Oh,
I was getting a tattoo
brew,
and
yeah.
somebody gave me a drink.
Oh,
I'm like,
man.
you can't drink while you're getting a tattoo?
Sounds like party at Mo's house.
If you can't remember the name of it, that's how you know it's a good drink.
Yeah.
Right. It tasted like orange soda, but then all of a sudden you're like, hey.
Ooh.
You know?
It's something
This is Scotland. You have to have a drink at any occasion.
Yeah.
Can't drink and shouldn't drink are two different things. Right?
True.
I feel like any of this, you guys have been talking about like artifacts and just like the history behind like this, 2,000-year-old like wall. I remember one of like my very early experiences with, I was in Rome, and the only feeling that I could describe by seeing like some of like just these like some of the most amazing visual like experiences, like with the statues and just like the architecture and everything like that, is that kind of history is almost like overwhelming if you're not ready for it. It just really like the presence of it, so strong. So just being around that stuff and experiencing it for the first time, it's like goes back to what you were saying about just like Greek mythology, like on paper is already like so informative, but you really get a good sense of like how things were.
When you were there, were you overwhelmed by the majestic aspect of it, or the majesty, or were you overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, how did they make this?
It's a little bit of both. It's
a little bit of both, yeah.
The time and commitment to like the belief of like the drive of making this stuff was something that I couldn't put into words, and also just how beautiful it all was at the end of it.
The attention to detail, right?
It's unbelievable. And just thinking about like, and I know that stuff is present in our like day-to-day sort of environment, and maybe it's just like the contrast of like culture in that sense, but just being in something like that, and also just knowing how old it is, it's like, man, these things, like you mentioned already, kind of stand the test of time and really touch on something a lot deeper than maybe like what people are accustomed to experiencing.
I think you're right in terms of the use of the word deep, as I'm sure you'll attest to as well, when you're walking around Rome, and in particular when you see something like the Colosseum for the first time with your own eyes.
Unbelievable.
It takes your breath away. You can feel in your chest what you're witnessing. It's incredible.
It's so hard to put into words when you're in something like that. It's almost like experiencing just something bigger than yourself. And then when you get the idea, or just like some of the background, it's like these gods and goddesses, is like you really get that impression. Like you get kind of absorbed into all of it, just being around it.
Right. You can see how much the reverence of a thing that they believed in but didn't understood dictated the way they built their lives and their cities. And and it's the cost of human life that goes into some of those things is really staggering when you look at it. And it's kind of a dark fact, but it's true. There's an expense of humanity that goes to making something permanent. And there's a lot of competing theories as to why people do that. A lot of it's just terror management, but a lot of it is just that it's a way for culture to survive. And I've been to Rome too, and it's that feeling. And I get this. I will admit that I get the same feeling. We don't have a lot of that here in the States. We don't have a lot of that, like, oh, there's a ton of history here. There's some places, like there's some places you do, but not where three of us live for sure. And but what we do have is we have some of the most unreal nature. I live at least reasonably close to Yosemite National Park.
Ooh, beautiful.
and you go there and you have that same sort of, you're walking into it and it's like, what, the place is so unbelievably magical that,
Yep.
you know, I can see where that in itself could create this kind of stark spiritualism. And honestly, when I think of, when I go to places like that, I do think of Barrett's character.
Hmm.
Barret taught me. It's weird that we were playing a game as from the perspective of eco-terrorists, and you know, it's less complex than that in the original, and now in Remake they've done a lot to sort of change the image of that. But you know, there's this value that's attached to it, and Barret is such a good. Even though he has his own motivations and stuff like that, as a character, he really portrays the value of defending, you know, the only Earth we have. And did you have anything? Did you have any feelings or thoughts that you know, drove you know, that characterization of Barret when you were
So
performing?
I'm a lot like you, Clark, in that when I go different places and places that I haven't been or historical places, I'm real sensitive to the spirit, I guess. So I went to Yosemite and I've been up in um, Mammoth and just the beauty of certain places makes it undeniable that there is a God in heaven. And the simple fact that the spirituality that you talk about, you feel it there. It's like there is a creator. There's no way this could have just happened. This isn't the whole Big Bang mindset for me. And what hits me even more importantly is that it's there for us. So if it's there for us, that means people are involved, and you have to care about people. So you have to care about the preservation of not just the earth, but the preservation of life, right? So for me, I'm just like, wow, okay, this is when you hear him say, um, you know, the planet's crying out because all the Mako is being sucked out of it. And I know you can hear it. You know, he's saying, I know you can, and which is funny when Kyle's like, you can hear that, you know. But it's like, well, yeah, it's a whole different mindset. It's like, I know you see this atrocity that's happening right in front of your face. Are you really going to turn your back and deny it? I know you see this hatred that is coming from this particular person. Are you really going to deny that it's there? Especially if you have a position or a voice to give, to do something about it in contrast, so that not just the person's feelings are moved, but the person who you're trying to protect's life is saved. You see what I'm saying? So you have to care about people. And I think that's a huge thing that, you know, well, in order for people to survive, we have to keep things going naturally, so we have an environment for them to live in. One of the biggest things, and I know I said I wasn't going to talk politics, but here in the States, I couldn't understand the battle between what a party stood for. And it's like everyone is saying, well, this will help our economy financially, or this will help us here spiritually, this will be ruined, or all these different opinions and all these different facts. So many of them were on both sides of this equation, but it drew this weird line in the middle where people stopped caring about people.
Right.
So for me, it was like, okay, if the power right now that's in place doesn't give a damn about people, which allows everyone else seemingly, because we follow our leaders, you know, many by nature, which is weird to me. When a leader or a person of great power makes a suggestion or shows an action, a lot of people follow like lemmings. And unfortunately, that if that were to keep going, that would allow people to not give a rip about other people. So therefore, all the economy or all the little secondary things wouldn't matter because there would be civil war within our own backyard. So people would be killing people. There wouldn't be an economy. There wouldn't be these things that people say that they're fighting for because folks have forgotten love. And from where I'm from, love overcomes a multitude of sins. So it's kind of like, dude, we ain't going to have a place to stay. Nothing is going to be safe, regardless of race. Nothing is going to be safe for anybody if chaos is given a green light. And so I think that's where Barret is going. It's like, look at this reactor, look at this reactor. And if you look at every one of the reactors, was there a beautiful place that reactor was in? Or was it slums? Yeah. Were there slums that basically made up the city within the reactor? Now, there may have been nice neighborhoods around it, but I think, Mo, you even had a map the last time you and I were together of this is Midgard, this is where this is.
It would be weird if he didn't.
Yeah. So if you look at where the factories were set up, if you look at that, the reactors, they weren't set up in the people who were running them neighborhoods. So it's kind of like, all right, look, do we really not care about life? Have we really gotten that far to where elitism has brought all of us to a mindset of us against them? So that's the issue I think Barret has. It's like, there ain't gonna be no planet. Yeah. You got to fight for something so that we can live, or else everybody's gonna die.
And the comparisons,
everybody's gonna die anyway. But
the comparisons,
then he also had, he had Marlene to say, "Hey, I want you to have a better world than what I have or had."
Yeah.
So I have to
totally.
So there's layers to it.
Yeah,
and that's like that sort of what you just mentioned is even more relatable now than even when the game came out.
100%.
Yeah, which is why those Remake came out at a very good time, I feel like, because those topics in particular are such a profound discussion that we have right now, especially here in North America, where you almost can't avoid having those conversations at all.
Western culture, right?
Yeah, that's like every day, all day. We're talking about those sorts of things. 24-hour news cycle about them. So
right. I care about people, man. So that's me, and I think, in his heart of hearts, Barret cares about people. I think he cares even more for the people that he's more intimate with. But you're right, Ra.
I definitely think.
Did I answer you, Mo?
I don't know. I'm just.
I know we keep going.
You're just enamored.
I'm so engrossed. I'm so engrossed in your voice. Starry eyes just come down.
It's one of the
conversations. I'm sorry, man.
No, it's perfect. It's funny how similar all of these topics that we're bringing up is that one of the things that comes up when you're talking about like today's world. And then when we were talking about like what you feel when you're in these places that have so much history is that power that I was describing is kind of like a double-edged sword, where there's like this darker element of like the creation of these things, but also like how beautiful and majestic is. And it's those things in combination. I think that like what you were kind of highlighting there, John, for a second, is that like, why do we follow these people or like leaders or something like that, is because it's, in my opinion, it's a combination of the two, right? It's the combination of like maybe a little bit of fear mixed in with the majestic, the sort of, larger than life elements of these people. So, and that's where, and when you're highlighting people as like the focus, those are the things that get lost when you start going into those realms. Like the human mind goes into like the darker elements, the fear-based stuff, or things that they just feel like are larger than themselves. I think that's
true.
Like the economy, like, yeah, you're right. Is like all of these things are so secondary when you really think about like what's important, but people get so like wrapped up in those things is because the people who are in power. And I'm going to bring this back to Final Fantasy VII.
One of the things that, as you were talking there, that, I think has always been very interesting is that, again, with Barret as a character, he is a leader just the same way that President Shinra is a leader. But there's a very stark juxtaposition there, that Barret is sort of grassroots style leadership, whereas President Shinra top of the tower element, almost godlike to an extent. But you have this, the juxtaposition there is very much that President Shinra fights for himself, whereas Barret fights for everyone else. But by fighting for everyone else, again, touching on the relationship with Marlene, you know, you see the beauty there, you see the care. Whereas while it's not touched on so much in the remake, the broader Final Fantasy VII universe explores a little bit President Shinra's relationship with his son Rufus, and how he is very cold to Rufus. There's no real love there. There's no real sort of trust or respect. And the more you dig between the leadership styles, the more you get to see, well, actually it impacts on the wider element of their life or of their role.
And their leadership.
Exactly. So you're right that, you know, only when you have a leader who's fighting for everyone else does everything else, you know, the love, the compassion, the empathy, all of this falls into place in a way that...
When you think about it, Mo, his relationship changes with Rufus when he starts becoming successful. Because it's about money, and then it becomes selfish, right? And so you think about, going back to what you were saying, the creation of, let's just say Egypt, and the statues and the Sphinx and the pyramids. And I mean, how many thousands and thousands of slaves were killed or that killed them for putting up a monument for somebody's ego or selfishness. And then you think about Barret working in the mines. For whom? You know what I'm saying? So, but there's always going to be that, and there's always been that in our world. There's always going to be manual laborers. There's always going to be people of power. So where is it that you find a common ground to where, you can choose to do certain things, you can choose to be the manual labor, but where is it that humanity is cared about within it? And that's the issue. And I think, Mo, that's it's so apropos that you bring that up, because it's so true. This leadership, you see it turn. You see the difference between caring for others and caring for self. And it's weird, because you would think that his relationship with Rufus would make it turn to a nepotistic thing. He would be nepotism with service, but it doesn't. No, because there's that egoism there.
There is definitely, you know, Final Fantasy VII has like, if you were to just throw out a couple of theme words, you would think, you know, the planet and corporate greed, but I think the most underrated aspect, and I think what the solution to all these problems, like you said, finding common grounds, is I think the real theme of Final Fantasy VII has always been family. And that family is a choice. A family is a choice of, you know, who you bring into your life and who you make family. It's a cast of orphans. You know, everybody is an orphan in some way, shape, or form, and they all find family in each other. And you know, later on in the compilation, that's explored even more. And the difference between some of the antagonists and the protagonists in the story really is how they relate to their family. If you look at, you know, like you're mentioning President Shinra, and I hope we find out his first name, and I hope we find out that it's President. But two, you know, in the way that he not only deals with Rufus, and he's got other weird children in other parts of the compilation too, and but Sephiroth himself is somebody that they capitalize on Sephiroth's lack of family, and that he was raised in like this really cold and harsh scenario, and that when he's given the opportunity to connect with others, he makes a different choice, and this is sort of the result. And so there's a lot of value in the way that the characters decide who they put in their life. And I think that's ultimately, you know, if there is a solution somewhere to how do we fix our planet, how do we destroy the ills of capitalism, not capitalism as a whole, but just how do we make the world work? And I'm sure that the answer is probably somewhere in the family, you know.
Well, I'll tell you another thing to keep in mind.
Mm.
And these are just things of how do we destroy it? What happens if we don't destroy it, but we learn to work together? What
Sure.
happens if we learn to compromise? What happens in a mindset where we actually have conversations? So I want you to look at two aspects of it. Well, first of all, with Sephiroth, he's a fighter. He's hardcore, right? He's had a cold background. He's got how many wings? Look at his mindset. Look
One
at
or
his
six, depending on when you fight him.
Depending on, yeah, right. But the form that we see him in,
Right.
especially with the flashbacks. And then you think about Barret. He's got one real arm. You start thinking about the different deficiencies that the Cloud has, and his upbringing and his confusion because of what's going on. You think about Tifa's, you think about the vices, and those one vices all relate. Now, here's the deal. What are they going to do when they go to the top of, when they're going up the elevator, when they're going to the top of the tower? What is their overall goal? It's not to go up there and just kill somebody. Even if Barret says it, it's not. They're going up there to have a conversation to see how this thing can get resolved, how it can be fixed. The other action that's done down with blowing up stuff and all that is to get any reactions. Okay, now we know who we're going to see. That's who we need to go and talk to. So as opposed to going and just blowing shit up, if we just go and have a mission, can we sit down and reason together? Which has been my mindset throughout here in the States, my mindset throughout, out of all the people who are upset and angry and have differences and don't like me because of this or whatever it may be, I want to have dialogue. I want to have conversation. So I have a choice. Either I'm going to hate you back, or I am going to try to be a bridge builder, right? So if we have more people that were trying to simply have a conversation, don't get me wrong, everybody ain't built to do that. But if we have more people that were just trying to conversate, to sit down and talk, we don't have to agree all the time, or we don't all have to be together on the same mindset. But if we talk and have dialogue, then we can at least work something out, even if it is to disagree and go different. At least we've tried. So that's the issue, that if you think about what that whole stair scene, that whole, let's get to the top, it's going to try to talk to this cat. That's who we know is in charge. So let's see if we can do something with him. Right. You know what I mean? As opposed to, and I wish so many people would stop with the mindset of, okay, now you got to get the gun, or now you got to blow this up, or now the parliament is doing this, or now Brexit is doing this. Like, wait. People are going to do what people are going to do. But if we could just bridge the gap and say, can we talk? Can we have some dialogue over this? We don't have to even understand everything that people are doing. Can we just talk? And let me tell you what our goals are, and let's find out what your issues are, and let's figure out what we can do.
It's one of
that's it for me.
That's one of the things I relate to the most in like Remake is that, and it's something that comes up a lot with like all the characters, but when you're talking about like going to Shinra HQ and going to talk to the president, one of the things that we see through the characters' eyes is that there are just regular people working in Shinra. And like, especially with like Tifa's character, she's just like, these people are just like us, and they might not understand completely like the effect that they're having in the larger scheme of things, but it all comes down to just like how those dialogues are kind of unfolding, especially this middle ground.
They're building the pyramid. They're building the temples.
Exactly.
They're building the Colosseum. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Whether they understand what it's for or not. But let's talk. Let's figure out what's needed. Let's figure out. And you can't make everybody happy. You got to know that. But it still can't be such a divide of us against them.
It's about like, and especially in Remake, there's a lot of push, and this happens I think after Platefall, and I don't know if I'm writing a line here by saying this, but there's something that is a reoccurring theme in Remake is that hate as a drive for the characters, or mentions of hate, and Tifa being bottled up, and that's just her character. She kind of keeps a lot of things internally, and then kind of has these little like explosions of emotion when she's just sick of Shinra or sick of the events that are happening. But something that Barret passes on to Tifa is saying that he wants her to hold on to that hatred as a drive, similar to certain other characters. And I think that that's a really interesting moment, because that's something that's highlighted with Barret, in terms of like how his story unfolds later and his drive. Not to say that it's all that, but it's just really interesting to see that. And then going into this conversation remake of like, what is like the middle ground? Like how did we arrive here is also the conversation. How are we able to have this discussion between these two sides, depending on where we've come from, which is something that I'm really interested in seeing going forward in remake, because that seems to be an overarching question that hasn't really been settled yet. But
well,
again,
if you look at the world of Final Fantasy, and the writers are extraordinary, from 1 to 15. I mean, the writers are extraordinary. I mean, they create what we're doing right now. We're having a conversation about the theme of a video game and the world that's been created in it. You know, I mean, and I think the chocobos. I mean, it's just fascinating different things. It's just, so you think about what you're talking about, and the concept of hate and how to control it, or how to guide it, or how to use it as a weapon on either side, for good or for bad. I mean, we're having a conversation about the world that was created by unbelievably talented writers and creators for each individual Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me. And that is Greek, that is mythology.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. That is true. I think that's a fantastic soundbite for the Final Fantasy VII mythology of, it's a story about spiritualism, capitalism, hate, and chocobos.
Yeah.
Don Corleone.
Oh. And that's definitely something that's interesting, is like, just on the subject of mythology and Final Fantasy VII, like the live stream is it definitely gives off the same sort of impression of like power that we were talking about before too, which is that it can be this thing that is uncontrollable, not necessarily nonsensical, but more like reactionary, like nature. Like it can be an extreme force for good and for like maybe not in the human's benefit at the same time. How crazy that gets in, you know, the rest of Final Fantasy VII stories with like the weapons and things like that. It's a very, very fun spiritual thing to be working with when you get into the.
I think that's a really, really good point, Owen. Actually, that's one of the things that, as a kid, as I mentioned to the guys earlier, I was 11 or 12 the first time I played Final Fantasy VII, and when the sort of weapon monsters are released by the planet later in the game, I forget which character it is. I think it may be Sid. Asks the question of the weapon will target everything that's bad for the planet, but we don't know if it's going to attack humans. And it's that was the first time as a kid it made me question, you know, in our own world, as mankind, you know, is it welcome on the planet, sort of thing. So it really kind of hits home. As time goes on, you know, are humans welcome here? And there are so many deep themes, you know, just by that one story element that was introduced in Final Fantasy VII. It begins to sort of makes you question so many things going on in the real world. And yeah, it's the live stream. I've spoken about this a few times. The live stream and the idea of the spiritualism kind of helped shape my understanding of spiritualism in general. I was sort of raised a Christian. I'm not particularly religious anymore, but I think being introduced for the first time to something other than sort of a God in heaven really opens your mind to, okay, let's look at, you know, the bigger picture. Let's look at other things or other ideas that are out there. And I feel that doing so has allowed me to become, I guess, more of an empathetic person in many ways. So I find it so strange that, you know, for me personally, Final Fantasy VII has had such an impact that it's affected my own understanding of spiritualism. It's affected my own understanding of humanity. It's affected my own understanding of corporations or capitalism. And it, going back to what you touched on there, John, like having writers who have been able to create that level of awareness, I guess, is quite special. And again, in the old days, that's exactly what the religions did. That's exactly what we now call mythology did. It gave understanding to broader themes,
right,
to people who, otherwise did not understand the world.
I mean, think about Red, Nanaki. You think about his character as a whole. I mean, he's the last of his kind. He was a leader. If you look at some of the markings, if you look at the different clips in his ear, his hair, if you look at all that, that's Native America here in the United States, and in China it's a different thing, and in Europe it's a different thing, and in Africa it's a different thing. It's that culture that the ancients that used to live and mean something that got wiped out because of something. And it's just these crazy metaphors within it. It's a beautiful world that's been created, and my eyes were so open to understanding the importance of Final Fantasy as a whole for people. And the fan base I never realized that there was a fan base like this. And then the cosplayers, and I'm just like, this is just my first convention. It was KupoCon, and they are strictly Final Fantasy. I was blown out of the water. I think I was overwhelmed. I felt like I was on a roller coaster that just went down. It was just like, oh my gosh, here's something else. Oh my gosh. And, it was just a beautiful thing. And, I know you said you've been doing this for a minute, but to see the buzz and the excitement and the fan base and the family, I mean, that's gotta be something for you to have seen for so long. And it's exciting. It's an exciting thing. Especially to see the commonality.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was just thinking right now about a friend I have, and I like literally met this guy because I was at a convention. I think it was Akon, not to be confused with the singer. There's a Dallas convention here called Anime Con, but it's abbreviated. Okay. But I met this guy. He's now like one of my closest friends too. He was just cosplaying Barret, and I just freaked out over it, and I was like, "Oh, what's up, man? You're cosplaying Barret," and we became friends. And cool. And so even before I started doing my YouTube channel, I was a Final Fantasy cosplayer, and I sort of had like a leg up whenever I came into creating YouTube, because I had been going to these conventions for quite some time, and I had just met like hundreds of fellow Final Fantasy fans from just all these experiences and years of going to those conventions and meeting other cosplayers who were, you have to be very passionate about something to want to dress up as a character from and it not be Halloween.
Was the Barret cosplay dude, was he from the States?
Yeah, no, this is all here in Dallas. Yeah.
Was it Hunky Bananas?
No.
Because I'm meeting so many of them online. I'm like, damn, those are some good cosplayers. I'm just fascinated when I see cosplayers of color. I'm just fascinated because you just don't see it a lot, and I love it. It's weird because even within my own culture, folks balk at those who want to dress up and do cosplay. And it's like, what? Yeah. What? You wear your jeans half sagging and want to represent a rapper, but you got a problem with somebody who just loves a video game or an anime or so it's wild to me. So I just love it when I see it. It's fascinating. It's just a beautiful thing to see.
And that's something in our own culture too, that we I think we make the positive influence for too is to sort of empower those Black nerds to be more open about themselves and their interests and stuff. Because growing up, as a Black man, I really didn't have anyone else to relate to on these things. It was me and my brother, and we were both nerds, and I guess a lot of the other kids were into other stuff too. And you know, being a Black cosplayer too, there's still sort of those people who, you know, I don't always cosplay dark skinned characters either. So you know, and whenever you do that too, you get people who are sort of like, why are you dressed up as such and such, even though like, I'm just passionate about it, dude. I just want to be them. Like, it's fun fantasy for me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many folks Mo knows, how many folks we saw play Tifa and Aerith, who were dudes, and just like, oh, do your thing. Is that those real flowers? You know, so I just I'm amazed at an environment where we can be who we want to be, who we admire, who we play, who we watch, who, you know, for whatever weekend it is, and can be accepted that way, and have fun, just be on one accord without foolishness. You know what I mean? Whether it be from the outside or from within, it's without foolishness. But yeah, it's a cool world, man, and I'm blown out of the water at how I'm blessed. I'm like unbelievably blessed to have been chosen to play this character, who is one of the most fascinating characters I've ever had to play. And just, you know, I find out more and more about him as I read Mo's books, or as I play other Final Fantasy games, or as I just go delve deep into my own personal research for who he is. It's fun to be able to develop a character in such a time as this.
You got a lot of material.
Develop it exceptionally well, I might add.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, you're instrumental in what the character becomes now, and that's awesome. And I was thinking about what Mo said about how formative Final Fantasy was for him, and it's weird that it's true for me too. You know, I wouldn't know anything about Kabbalah were it not for Final Fantasy. You know, like it adjusted my you know, my interests growing up, and so these things matter. And I'm really excited for the generation of children that get you know, the John Eric Bentley Barret as a guide. And so I'm filled with unbelievable pride being here with you. Thank you.
Will you do me a huge favor? And this is like a personal favor. I need you to, when you see him, hug your brother, give him a high five, and thank him. And that's from you. And then do it again, and that's from me. Because honestly, the same situation. It was the first RPG I played, and I saw it had a black man in it, and I went, whoa, it's a black dude in this, and he doesn't die. He didn't die. And that, I know people laugh when I say it, but it's true.
It's true.
For so long, and in so many movies and TV shows and all these different things depicted, unless we were a rogue, a thug, a pimp, or even the soldiers, we died. But, you know, a person who was a caricature, we died. And this guy's a leader. He's tough. He's got a gun for an arm. You know, all these crazy things.
He's a hero.
He didn't die. And that was like, wow, you know, that was inspirational for somebody who grew up on the South Side of Chicago, who saw so much stuff, whose parents were involved in. My dad was chased by the Klan, I think, for every month at least once when he was coming up. My mom was part of SNCC. She was on the front lines with my uncles and aunts who were on the front lines in Woolworths doing the sit-ins, and, you know, all these different things. And, you know, all we saw was just tough stuff. And we still do to this day. But to see characters being portrayed by Black men and women and children now, and to see characters who are not Black being portrayed vocally and by characters who are, you know, it's amazing. So, and I'm not just talking about cosplay, Rod, like we were saying, but there's so many characters now that are being played in voiceovers by people of color, and the characters aren't people of color. And that's just a cool thing to see that talent is all over the place like that. So, you know, we're at the start of it, and I love being in a world that's part of it. And I hope that whatever I leave behind lets it blossom more. And so, but it's just cool to watch this. It's been an honor being able to hang out with you guys. There's no way I could have just given you 5 minutes. I'm sorry if I intruded on you guys' time.
No,
10 minutes is up, John. Jeez.
Quiet mode.
I just love being around like-minded folks and what we're passionate about doing. It's cool to talk. You don't get to do that much, especially with this whole, virtual
climate.
It's just cool. This makes up for the cons. I don't get to interact with people and just try to just love on folks.
Yeah. Like I said, this is the greatest part about games. I feel like it's so weird too with Final Fantasy, as a primarily single player experience aside from the MMOs, that it's really brought together this many people. I've met somewhere near thousands of people now, maybe tens of thousands, because of a narrative experience that we mostly experience separate, apart from each other. But we all were like, man, that hit me like right in here. And then so we all had like this instant connection with one another.
Yeah. That's not a PS5 over there behind you, is it?
No, I wish it was.
Noah's talking about buying one. My second son is talking about buying one. And everybody in the house is all excited. But he's also talking about getting an Xbox. And so I'm like, man, I don't know where you guys are going to put it. Oh, you don't understand. There's an Xbox One in the living room. Quincy took my PlayStation 4. So Maxwell, my third son, he's just a computer genius dude. He restored and refurbished the PlayStation 4. And he said, Dad, you can have this one in your room while I work on this PlayStation 2. Because it's backwards compatible. And then I've got, I think, Nintendo under the bed and a Super Nintendo under the bed. And so it's like it's just crazy in this house. I'm like, we don't need two, especially because, like, unfortunately, Xbox is just not putting the games out. And I'm looking at, we were talking last night because Michelle went out of town. We were talking last night and had a straight up man talk about how many exclusive titles are available for PS4 or 5 now. How many exclusive titles are made for the PlayStation as opposed to Xbox? And correct me if I'm wrong, but is Xbox just Skyrim, Fable, and there's one other one. Which people don't play anymore.
Halo.
Are those the three things?
I think that's the most, from what I've heard, those are the bigger exclusives. And then
they're getting dusted, dude. You're talking about Last of Us, all of the Uncharted series, God of War. I mean, it's just like, what is going on? So
yeah, they're slacking.
It's amazing.
You have a little series called Final Fantasy on that PS5 coming out.
Yeah, just a little thing.
Yeah.
How much was yours, Clark, or did just somebody bless you with it?
Nobody blesses me with things.
Look at his face.
This is the digital only one. I think the digital only one's Force something.
Is it way over 4?
No, I think it's like 450, 469. I think Ryan's typing, so he's probably going to check for me.
So you have a choice to get digital or what?
Or one with a disc.
The digital's 400, the physical's 500.
Yeah.
Do people still use discs?
A lot of people do. I don't. I hate them.
So gamers are probably games are probably the only medium that are probably like still like manufactured on disc, like at like widespread like volume. Because for the most part, with like movies, music, or pretty much any other medium, most people are streaming it, right? But gamers still love a physical media.
Yeah.
Why? Because we get to sign it, or what?
I guess
it's the collection. You find typically that gamers they enjoy collecting the things. You can't really do that with the digital copies.
That's true. Yeah.
A lot of it can also be like it's almost like a badge of honor to have, like, all of your Super Nintendo games, your NES. It's just like a way of like really expressing, I guess, yourself. through that, like whether it's like posters or something like that. But yeah, like digital physical copies, I should say, are like a
That's
great
good
way
to know.
of expressing that for us, at least. I'm still looking to get a collection right now. So
A collection of what?
just like I'm a really big Super Nintendo fan, and I just miss the cartridges, just growing up with them, blowing into them, and all. Exactly.
Right.
I just was at my brother's house, and he had just recently been collecting them, and just seeing them all on display is like, it just brings me back. So it's something that I would like, as I'm getting older myself, like just having that somewhere would be awesome. That's why you got Ryan with the Final Fantasy memorabilia in the back. It's
I love that.
Yeah,
He's
so
got
actually,
a serious wall though. That's like a display rack.
That's right.
I'm still trying to fill it. I just moved recently. There's actually a pretty funny story about this giant Final Fantasy 15
That's just cool.
display there that my friend actually, he got it from GameStop, and then he gave it to me for my birthday, and he had to like, he lives like an hour away, so he had to like haul it over here on his truck. But I really appreciate, Chris, if you ever end up watching this, thank you so much for
That's a lot of love,
the big
Chris.
Final Fantasy 15
Chris, MVP.
That's the true Avalanche.
Yeah, that's my dude right there.
Chris and Hunky Banana getting free shout
That's
outs.
right.
Hey man, I know it's hey, Hunky Banana ain't no joke. The dude looks just like Barret. He and Mo, remember MJ? You remember Mo in London?
I think you met him in Glasgow the first time, but yeah, he's from England. Yeah,
Yeah, he and Hunky Bananas are like for real, like straight up Barret.
incredible.
There was another dude that I met in Canada though. I can't remember his name. I mean, they straight up look. I'm not big like Barret. These dudes are like Barret. Like, the hell, dude? Like, yeah, man, you do the voice. Oh my gosh! And I'm like, yeah, but you look like it.
I think Mo from England was the one that you had his arm on at one point. I think it's the sort of the longer one from Advent Children. But yeah, I remember seeing a photograph of both of you, and you've got the arm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big dude, but not like Barret is a big dude. You know, like
it stretches plausibility.
Yeah, so it's just funny when you meet dudes who are that size and have on the gear, and they look up to you. I'm like, motherfucker, you look just like Barret. How about this? I get behind you and you mouth the words. It's crazy to me. But no, man, it's a fun thing. It's a fun ride. This pandemic, I can't wait for it to be over for several reasons. But it'd be great to be able to get back out and see people. And I know we reach a lot of people with the podcast and the Zoom meetings and everything, but I sure do miss seeing the joy in people's faces, because to me, having this position, having this platform, so to speak, it's not worth it if you can't bring hope or restoration or joy or encouragement to uplift and edify folks. It's not worth it. And so, for me, that's what I love seeing. I love being able to talk to people, because as you know, it sounds like we're all gamers and we're all fanboys. As you know, a lot of the games are individual games. You get into your world, and the world outside is completely different. And for some of us, it's brutal. Whether it be if we're dealing with depression, whether it be with people dealing with suicidal thoughts, whatever it may be, rejection, whatever it may be. So for a moment, for me to be able to meet people, not just as fans, but be able to say, hey, man, it's okay. Don't give up. That's what brings me all the joy in the world, because that's way more important than, hey, I just got to meet the dude who plays this and this. All right, great. I'm glad you got to meet that dude. But this dude wants to make sure that you're okay, because there's so many folks who don't just check in. You know what I mean? And being an only child, I realize how important that is, to check in and make sure folks are doing okay. I think we met one fan, and she writes, hey, just doing a spiritual welfare check. You good? And I'm like, blown out of the water. blown out of the water every time. I'm like, if I'm not good, I'll let them know. And she's like, okay, this is what you got to do. And I try this. But the whole time, she's dealing with stuff that is so crazy in her world right now, being a caretaker for her mom, dealing with COVID, dealing with all these different things financially. But she's making sure that other people are doing good. I know that she doesn't just do it for me. So those are the things that I think will make our world and our environment, right where we are, whomever we can affect that way, better. If we can just reach one person and speak joy and life into them, then hopefully they'll do the same. And if we can just, do that, and so on and so on and so on, we'll be in a much better place.
Absolutely. And
That's amazing.
I can testify that it's much more difficult to give you a cuddle over Zoom. One of the things from our experience at CooperCon was at the Glasgow event. Being able to walk around and over the years I've built up a number of friends there, and there was one overriding sort of sentiment that was there at the event that you attended in Glasgow, and that it was just this sheer elation that everyone that met you had of, I can't believe John Bentley hugged me, because they don't get to experience that anywhere else. And it's without a shadow of a doubt. I've had the pleasure of meeting a number of the other guests at the CooperCon events, but without a shadow of a doubt, you're the one that touched the most people, and it was because of how welcoming and how bubbly and how willing to sort of engage and hug people, and you went the extra mile, and it made the difference to every single person, which is why when you won your award recently as the best community voted male actor, it was not just your performance, it was the love that this community has for you because of who you are as a person, and that's the difference.
That's cool to hear, man. That's cool to hear.
Someone slicing onions there,
I'm
John?
trying not to. I'm hold on for a minute. Okay, I'm good. I just, it's important. It's important. We met so many people in Glasgow, my son and I, and Mo, as you know, we met folks at a tattoo parlor who didn't even know about the convention that was there. And I truly do believe that son and his mom, who were in the tattoo parlor, he was probably getting a tattoo because he was on his last legs. And to be able to speak life into him and, see him smile. And I don't know if you know this, but there were several people in the lobby at one point, and I know usually people just walk by, and I couldn't walk by, and it was a mother and a daughter, and I was recently able to do a cameo for them, both for their birthday.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and they've had some tough things, and the daughter, she's learning how to walk. You know what I mean? It's just a trooper, but the joy, you never realize that you thinking that you're going and talking to somebody and bringing joy, you never realize how much they bring into your life. And Jenny is the mom, and Katie is the daughter, and I'm saying their names because they're special, and they have talked to me during this pandemic, not knowing how their words have uplifted and edified me during tough times that I just don't talk about because I'm a dude, we don't talk about all our stuff. And, going through it in just the right moment, I do believe it's a God ordained moment. He put them in my life for a reason, but they have said things to me to just keep me going as a man and as a father and as a husband, to speak joy into somebody else's life. So I do believe that there's a reason that things happen, but that trip to Glasgow, I bought the shirt. People make Glasgow. I bought the shirt the minute I saw it.
Just for context, Glasgow as a city has a slogan that you see everywhere. It just says "People make Glasgow," and the idea behind it is that it's the people of the city that bring it to life and that make it special. So when John and I were out around the city the day before, he actually bought a T-shirt with the slogan on it and wore it to the event, and I'm pretty sure that was the biggest cheer of the day when you revealed it to the crowd.
It's true. It's true. It was a magical city, man. And you know, I hope and pray that I get to meet you all. I know, Clark, you're up in
Owen, are we doing this?
Are you up for it, John? I don't want to like impose.
Yeah, we don't want to
No,
impose.
I'm gonna be there anyway, so I might as well say hey to everybody. I hate like just doing this and not saying hi. So let's like say 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Where are we meeting
how do I text on this thing my information?
Yeah,
I was warned never to do this.
This mythology talk is really taking some turns.
I know, just took some turns, right? Well, hey, Medusa wasn't no joke.
Oh, mythology is no joke. Like I'm sure Mo can tell you too. Mythology has some weird stuff.
Yeah.
Man, you think of the what are their names? Percy Jackson, I think, did probably one of the best jobs.
Oh, the
Sirens.
The Sirens.
Mm.
You know, I believe that the Sirens were like, first of all, the Sirens that were on the rocks that led the Iliad and the Iliad. You know, they had to be fine. And you know
I mean, yeah. Good. I mean, I don't know what their standards were like back then, but I bet.
I don't know about that, John. With Odysseus and a lot of men on a ship for weeks and weeks, I think the sight of any woman would have been enough to draw them.
True. Very true. Very true. I never even thought about that aspect. But, you know, men jumping overboard, and I'm sure Medusa was alluring.
Yeah, you know,
I mean, until she showed you them snakes.
I'm sure someone was into that. So,
hey, back in the day, listen. If we can go off of the stories that are recorded from Caligula, then I guarantee you somebody was into that. Some crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way there wasn't.
Yeah,
the concept of centaurs and. Oh, come on, man. We can go for days on that.
That reminds me of like a lot of ancient artworks in Japan where they'd show people like doing stuff with like
all
like
the crazy positions, right?
Yeah. It was like very, very crazy. And talking about this was like hundreds and like thousands of years old artwork that depicted this. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, when they drew it, you know, people were trying to do that. Like, this don't work. My body don't bend like that.
And it's just funny because like in a lot of ways, humanity, like even though we've changed, we also have not in a lot of other ways.
Well, you got to remember though, Rod, that's our base nature too, right?
Yeah.
You think about it.
Yeah.
What do you need? Security, love, sex, you know, all that, man. So, of course, you know, that was their form of pornography. And, you know, back some of those paintings, they had on all their clothes except for that little parts that they were exposing. And that was considered sexy. Think about not ancient, but early civilization Rome. I mean, not Rome, but England. They thought calves were fine. You show the calf, you're like, ooh, you showing a lot of skin.
That's true. There was this style during 17th century France as well, where dresses were cut like down here so that one boob was out at any given time. So that was the style. You always had to have one boob out while you were like hosting dinner parties and things.
Yeah, I mean, when I was down there with Mo or over there with Mo, they showed me what a real kilt was. And what it really does if you don't wear, like, the myth is you don't wear drawers under your kilt. I don't know if y'all know that.
That's
but
not myth.
He showed me
reality.
why you were able to. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? You can't do that? And then he said, no, it's not like a schoolgirl skirt like Japan or in
Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, no. It's like for real. A kilt is like, man, that ain't lifting up.
Oh, yeah.
A real kilt is like, nah, man, you good. You're good. Even if you did it stiffly, you're good. No one will know. It was like, wow. So you'd be surprised. But enough about all that.
Centaurs.
I'm okay with all this. This is great.
Well, now you have my information, so
Yeah,
you guys hit me up, and then I'll let you know when I'm wrapping up.
Yeah, for sure. That's
great.
And I guess because I don't know whether or not we're wrapping up, but it's something that I wanted to say anyway. It's so crazy to meet, somebody who's involved in something that we all love very much, and just have just such an awesome conversation. And I not only do I appreciate the performance, but like it's just an awesome thing meeting you and talking. It's been
Cool.
more than enough conversation for me to satisfy most of my my COVID angst. So
yeah, right.
Yeah,
it's a good
absolutely.
close of the year, baby. For me too. And then Rod, we'll have to figure out when we come your way, or you come our way, or however that works out. I mean, I'm sure cons will. I'm not sure, but I think cons will probably start up again next year. A lot of people think March. I don't think March. But I do believe that probably after June, I think things will they'll figure out a way to do things. Don't know how. I don't. I'm hoping. I'm hopeful that they will. A lot of people do cons because of the money. I do it for a whole different reason. And you get to see the world, get to see places you've never ever been able to see. So hopefully they'll send us one. I was supposed to go to Portland last weekend to do one, and apparently they have one coming up. Who ran it? There's going to be one in Denver, Colorado, in April or June. So hopefully, if things go right, I might go up and try that, depending on how clean they can get it, or what the world's like. Then I'll let y'all at some.
Well, you don't need.
I travel
con.
a lot for cons anyway.
Yeah,
cons are just convenient because everyone's there. But I travel a lot for cons anyway. I just go to them to mostly party with friends. and
well, you got my information.
Fans of my content. Yeah.
Hit me with the one. Hit me with the ones that you are gonna go to, and I'll see if they send an invite. Then I'll see if I can make it down. Big Mo, you good?
Yeah.
You get everything you needed.
I'm getting very jealous listening to these guys.
Why? You got to hang out with me longer than anybody.
I know. They can have you, John. I've already had you.
Anybody.
Oh my goodness.
We're gonna come on, man.
I'm kidding. This is, like I said, we were expecting 10 minutes, so we're unbelievably grateful for your time.
You got it, man.
It's been amazing. I was saying to the guys beforehand that seeing you on videos or seeing you in kind of social media, it doesn't even scratch the surface of what you're like in real life.
Yeah,
and I think this conversation, and particularly towards the end, we finally got to see what you're like as a person, and it's just magical. So I'm delighted for them.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Well, I look forward to meeting you guys tomorrow, and Ryan, hope we get to see each other one day too.
Oh, we
Mo,
will.
you already know I'm trying to figure out how to get Alex even to get me closely remotely to you. It's a different flight when you go overseas. It was a blast. I got to see stuff I've never seen before and meet people who just some phenomenal people. And I do believe that in each one of those spots, we saw a change happen in people's lives for the betterment, As a matter of fact, I know for a fact a couple of them were inspired to start doing their own thing. And one he moved from Vancouver to Pittsburgh, has been doing voiceover work, working for a voiceover company in the midst of COVID, booked a voiceover job while working for the company.
Okay.
Just remember Adam Kuta, the guy who wore the dress, the Aerith dress? Just an incredible cat, dude. And so that was one. And then there's a couple people who came up to me in London who were thinking about taking themselves out. And, it's just a beautiful thing to see a change, man. And I can't wait to see everybody and figure out where they are, those who I've already met, especially, to figure out, how they've dealt with COVID and how they've come through it and, haven't given up. So it's going to be a cool thing once the world opens back up.
Yeah, it'll be one big party. It'll be great. be like the ending scene of Star Wars. You know, all the different planets with.
Exactly.
Not with that music, I hope.
Everyone's gonna get their own medals.
Right. Are those ghosts over there? Are those ghosts over there? That's funny. Well, yeah, man. So you guys hit me up with your information. Just send a text, and then I'll let you know 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then I'll just meet whatever parking lot that you're meeting in, as Clark says.
That's right.
As soon as this is over, I'll text you and we'll figure that out. That would be a dream come true for us.
Cool.
So,
cool, man. Cool.
And so you're an absolute gift from the heavens. You are a billion times more charming than I expected. So thank you so much for all this. And and again, I'm kind of at a loss for words for how much time you were willing to give us. I know that's that's probably the greatest thing you can give us, really.
I appreciate
your
it,
time.
man. It's all good. Now I'm about to, because Michelle's out of town, I finally get to go and binge on TV shows and work out whenever I want to work out, and actually start Red Dead Redemption because my stuff got erased. And then try Mo to get past the next doggone mission in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Fingers crossed for you, dude, on that one.
Yeah, just
I have not been able to get to the second reactor.
I'll talk you through it. You'll be fine.
That's right.
No, then it's not fun because you sit there and tell me where all the material is. I like to find stuff. That's how detailed this dude is. I think y'all know that, though.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, wait. Yeah. Stop right there. By that rail, there's a box. All right, much love, y'all. Thanks for everything.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Oh,
please.
you got, and I'm just Ryan. Don't be writing stuff that ain't true.
Oh, he is not.
No speculation here.
Yeah,
I got nothing.
Oh my gosh, my face is hurting.
Only thing I've learned today is that Barret is even cooler in real life.
That's right.
Oh, I appreciate it. All right, y'all. I'll see you later.
Take care.
Thank you so much. So, okay, I guess we'll just start with some introductions here. We'll make introductions just in case that when we put it all together, it doesn't quite jive well, and we need to split it into two. So we'll just start. And hello, everybody. Hello, audience. Welcome to part 2